Welcome to SkillSharp. I'm Brian Wright, and I'm here with my co-host and partner.
Hi, Todd Nakasona here.
And listen, we're excited to bring you this content on a weekly basis. We bring to you experts in their field to try to show people staying sharp in their functional areas and advancing and really kind of achieving the success that a lot of us would like to achieve. So today we have Benny Williams,
Hey,
um, friend of the show and just long time kind of role model in the sense of being an entrepreneurial force, has been successful working in-house as a data analytics and media research expert for many television networks and other businesses. I know he also has ventures outside of the space and has been notably successful in those areas as well. And we're here today to talk a little bit about some trends that he's seeing in the marketplace and, just from a recruiter, but then also person on the street standpoint, we want to discuss this and figure out if we could share some solutions for people moving forward. So, Benny, welcome to Skillsharp.
hey, thank you. Thank you for having me, Brian and Todd. I think, Brian, I've probably known you for like probably almost 20 years at this point. Feels like it.
Man,
15, it's been a while.
I
It's-
think when you're old, like myself, that's what we all say. The 20 years thing seems to be the standard
Yeah,
thing. But yeah, no, it's been a minute. And I knew you initially when you were at NBC,
NBC. Yeah, that was 20. Yeah, that's about.
yeah, before the Fox time. But I mean, just give us a brief background
Yeah.
or intro on you.
Okay. Name is Benny Williams, media research guy for 25 years or so. I actually have been doing media research since 1997. So that's a long time. I finished up my career at Fox in 2001. So I've done a lot of research, all different types of research, from sales research to just regular ratings research, cable research. I mean, been at CBS Cable, Warner Brothers, NBC, did about 15 years at Fox, research around development of television shows, research for marketing and promotion. Um, I think I'm pretty skilled at identifying trends. Um, I think I'm pretty good just with all of my experience at understanding what motivates viewers to either consume content, make a purchase, whether or not they're going to emotionally connect with certain characters or elements of the show. I've done tons of work around that. And on the side, or I guess I shouldn't even say on the side, but what I do is like also I'm a DJ and a music producer, and I've been doing that since like the late 80s. And yeah, man, been had some success in that area. And that's pretty much it, man. That's pretty much it.
No, that's it's great because we oftentimes talk about the future of careers is really having multiple streams. Like, even if it's like, hey, I'm skilled enough to make something my day job and it funds my life, but I have other interests and I
Yeah.
cultivate that interest and fulfillment by doing, the other things that I love. And that's not everyone's mode of operation. So it's great to have that be emphasized in what you do.
My question to you, Benny, is, and I know your career path is taking you in different directions. When did you know you could monetize one skill or another? Like, it kind of goes back to our professional pivot series. At what point should somebody start thinking about particular skill set that is maybe out of their wheelhouse with regards to the current day job? But what can they utilize to uh, kind of enhance a different stream of income?
I would say for me, it started probably like in 2006 or 2007. I was at Fox. I think just as an African American person, a person of color working in the corporate environment, I realized I hit my ceiling. And for me, that's when it started. That's when I knew that I would never be VP of anything. It's just not gonna happen. I was looking around Fox. I had been at NBC and at Warner Brothers, and I looked around those companies, and I didn't see anyone at the top that looked like me at all. So I decided at that point, I have to figure out something because, as I said earlier, the end result of a job is that one day you won't be there. I looked at my salary. I said, I can make that on my own. And that was it. I started to care very little about my growth at Fox. That's not to say that I didn't do an excellent job. Brian knows full well. I created stuff at Fox, stuff that's still in existence over there, stuff that they utilize every single day. I did an incredible job, but my actual investment in that particular company went away. And my investment became about what I can do. I was devoting my time to Fox when I had to devote my time to Fox. Everything else was about improving my personal situation. And I'm very serious about that to this day. When I talk to people, younger people about this kind of stuff, I always tell them, listen, save, invest, build a skill set, and try to position your life and world where you don't need a job when you're in your early 30s. And to do all of that, you have to divest from that company. You cannot emotionally invest in a company. A company is just that. It's a company. It's not a human being. It's not. You're the person. You got to live your life. So I told Brian the other day, if you are blessed enough to live to 80, you have like 4,000 weeks on this planet. How are you going to spend that? You think about working a 9 to 5. I used to think about this all the time. I live 17 miles from Fox. It would take me almost an hour and a half each way. I spent all those years, 9 to 6, focus groups, working late and all this stuff. Do I really want to spend my life that way? And for me, the answer is no. And for people who are looking for jobs, I always ask them to think about how you want your life to be. Do you really want to spend your life working at a company, sitting in traffic, not being promoted, not being valued? Like, are these the things? If that's how you want your life, then you should continue to work in corporate America. If you do not want your life to be that way, then figure out a way to not have to be there. And for me, it happened in 2007. I started investing in real estate. I built that, and I left Fox. I probably stayed at Fox a couple years longer than I had to. And meanwhile, I'm doing all this other stuff. I'm DJing, like I DJ for the Rams. I do all kinds of stuff. Like I could have not worked there a long time ago. But my psyche says that in all of my training and how I grew up in this country and all this stuff, it all says that you have to go sit in traffic, kill yourself, work 9 to 6, retire when you're 65, and then go die. And I just made a decision that no, I don't want that.
Just the fact that you came to that conclusion after that conversation, to me, is like the inflection point of when your entrepreneurial life started to take shape. It required something to light a fire underneath or stoke some kind of fire
Great.
that was always there.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part of recognizing it. Yeah, look at
So
Brian and myself, man. We worked together, started developing a friendship and relationships. And Brian has this idea is like, hey, man, we should have these dinners where we're getting leaders together and potential candidates, and we're making the introductions without the guise of having a job. And then when the pandemic hit, and then we said, hey, why don't we do, let's do a podcast. So now we're podcasters. Two old recruiters are now podcasters.
Mm-hmm.
and
Perfect.
and and to be candid with the recruiting world the way it is, and a lot of recruiters out of work, I pivoted to editing. And
Yeah.
so that was something that was going to help Todd and I out. And, that was the process too.
When you
So
guys are recruiting people, like, don't you find people who are often entrepreneurial, but they use it in the corporate setting, like they use it to make their corporate jobs better or their corporations better? You guys find people like that all the time, right?
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, I'll
Yeah.
find out what their interests are, or if they've got a, different entrepreneurial bent to it. Maybe they own a UPS store, I don't know, whatever, right? And it's just one of those things like, what lessons did you learn managing people, in a 24/7 environment versus,
Mm-hmm.
our company's not a 24/7, but what lessons did you learn? Or if they're like a lot of times too, I look at their degrees, and if it's something that's totally unrelated to doing now, like, hey, how did you go from a pre-med to whatever, data science, whatever, I don't
Hmm.
know. And I always like to kind of hear what the journey is, because I think there's nuggets along the way on how they can apply what they learned outside of that particular area into their new chosen field.
Yeah. When you talk to those people who are like, I'm sorry, I know this is going longer than, than what we
No,
thought,
no, it's okay.
but I do want to ask you guys this because now I'm like ask you guys questions. When you find people that are, I guess, entrepreneurial in nature a little bit, or in my case, at Fox, I created some stuff to make my job better at Fox, to make this process, make some processes easier. What do they say about how they view corporate America when they already have a little bit of like an entrepreneurial, like creative bent to kind of create something or just do things different? Like, are those the type of people that you find are like very interested in continuing to work corporate America, or it's just a job and they're going to do something else eventually?
A lot of times they want the golden handcuffs,
Yeah.
whether it's a stable income, benefits, being part of something bigger than themselves or whatever it might
Hmm.
be. You always figure out like some things like, hey, what's bringing you back from the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial track to corporate America again?
And what's cool about the question that you're asking, Benny, is that this is actually something that's super institutionalized already. So
Hmm.
from the standpoint of the, internet boom and all of that, you constantly had companies that were entrepreneurial that were being swallowed up by corporations. And it was
Yeah.
always a question on whether those people would stay and continue to operate the business versus exit, like what Todd said, that they would take the money and run. But we started looking for, and I talked about, I think really around the turn of the century, if not a little bit after, is that people were looking for entrepreneurially minded employees because they did not want to train them. Matter of
Mm.
fact, they didn't want to pay attention to them because they needed to manage up. And so from that time, you got less and less on the job training. You got less and less hiring manager, like coaching, assessment, feedback, all of that. It became much more of a systemized process where you got that once a year. But it was all because entrepreneurial type people were able to come in, figure out who they could work with, figure out their resources, really own their process. Literally, probably around '07, I would say like '05 to '07, I started to see that shift in people and how people were hiring. And
Yeah.
then it also kind of spoke to people being able to depart and not allow that to be a big detriment to them because they could easily now take all that knowledge that they just gained and say, great, I took basically their subject matter expertise, and now I'm going to go start my own thing.
See, that's how my experience at Fox was. It was very entrepreneurial. Like they didn't really give me any guidance. Like they was like, listen, these are your properties. I mean, I was just doing my own thing. I was creating my own stuff. Like I lit, my own budgets. Like I was just doing what I do. And yeah, they would give me a review at the end of the year, and it was always good.
I really found out what the meaning of the research was until I got to Time Warner and worked with the CNN guys.
Hmm.
Mm.
To your point, I saw a lot of what they did as far as advertising, going after the right advertisers for the TV networks. I was
Yeah.
never really exposed to that until I worked with the CNN guys, and they really drive a lot of what's happening as far as the advertisers, direction of the company,
Mm.
uh, the various channels directed towards niche markets, whether it's females over 35, like news, or like at Bravo, right? 18 to 35, that demographic. And a lot of times that drove the marketing dollars and what TV shows were actually greenlit.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
there's definitely science behind it. So yeah,
Oh yeah. Two good examples of that would be The Office at NBC and Empire at Fox. Both
Yeah.
shows didn't test that well, but they both had a demographic that was like highly engaged, highly engaged. In The Office, it was um, white, affluent, highly educated people. If it wasn't for that, The Office would not have gotten picked up.
Hmm.
Think about how The Office changed the television landscape. At that time, it was multi-camera comedy, stuff like Friends and, all that kind of stuff. The Office was like the first single camera comedy that we tested. I mean, that we had really on the air in the United States. Like when I first saw The Office at NBC and we were in the testing phase, I was like, this is stupid. Like nobody's gonna like this because I was used to seeing Friends and like whatever, multi-cam stuff. And we tested. I was right. It tested horribly, terribly. But there was this sliver of people with a bunch of money that was highly educated that loved this show.
Hmm.
And when we presented that to the upper management, they said, there you go. That's easy to sell demographic. And The Office got picked up. And now all comedies are just like The Office, single cam, no studio audience. It's been like that for like 20 some years now. There are no more like Friends type shows when you look at the comedy space.
Mm-hmm.
And the same sort of thing with Empire. It didn't test that well. And I looked through the data and I saw, you know what? Young African-American people absolutely love this show. And he was like, there we go. We can sell that. That's a demographic we can sell all day long. And that's how Empire gets picked up. Yeah.
You know about The Office, it has also continued on from a social media standpoint of even just people using comedic references to it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Those characters have all endured over time.
Yeah. It was interesting with The Office, man. That was the first time in my research career that I saw anything that tested so terribly, but then had this audience that was like crazy excited. Like I had never really seen that before. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, like these people, whoever this group of people, whoever they are, they love this thing. Yeah. And the second time I saw it was on Empire. And Fox almost fumbled Empire because they didn't know how to promote it.
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea. I had so many conversations about this particular audience, this particular demographic, how they should promote this thing. They're used to promoting like to a large, broad audience. So it's hard for them. So they think that they could do the typical thing that they would do with everything else. And it wasn't picking up traction. I'm like, bro, you can't promote this to this large audience of just viewers, the way that you would typically promote things. You have to go after that niche. And don't worry about everybody else. Just pretend that they don't exist. You have to go after that niche. I'm telling you, if you do that, and they started changing their marketing, and then Empire, it launched. It did way better than everybody thought it would. And I was like, I told you. And then it just got better. The more and more they went on, the more and more the show progressed, the better and better they got understanding like their audience and how to promote and that sort of thing. It was a struggle.
But it didn't just attract African American audience, right?
Initially it did. Yeah, initially it did.
But I'm saying in the larger success of it, it was because listen,
yeah.
Bottom line, I don't know what you call it, but the core audience loves Black content.
Yeah.
Loves it if it's presented in that way, right? And legitimize everything else. But didn't it start to attract a much larger general audience as well?
It did. It attracted a huge general audience. But that's another thing about research that we found out is that, and it's not a secret. Like people know about it. It's not like this kind of thing that people don't know about. But African American, that demographic, particularly the younger part of that demographic, really determines what's next and what's hot, not only in the United States, but around the world. And the minute they leave, then you know it's over. And you see the same sort of cycle with like American Idol. You see it, we saw it definitely with Empire. That's the first audience to show up and support Empire. And they loved it. Then everyone else started to catch on. The minute they decided Empire wasn't hot anymore and they left, then the show went down. It's the same sort of thing with like American Idol and a bunch of these other shows. Marketers and people who sell advertising, they understand that about that particular demographic. So
it very much goes unsaid though, right? Like it's like
it does go unsaid. But people know it's not, like I said, it's not really a secret. It's just something that goes unsaid. If you can capture that audience or if you can make that demographic like whatever it is that you're doing, it's going to be a hit as long as they're engaged. when they're not engaged, it's not a hit anymore. That demographic is always in a leadership position of like what's next most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with Empire, it's the same sort of thing. I remember I had a discussion about Empire and 50 Cent show. What was 50 Cent show?
Power or
Power. I had a discussion about Empire and Power. And it was when Empire was sort of like starting to wane a little bit, right? And I was sitting in my boss's office at Fox when we was having this discussion. And he was like, Empire, the numbers are starting to go down. They're trying to figure out they want me to do a bunch of research to figure out like why this is happening. I said, listen, I don't even need to do this research. I'm going to tell you now what's happening. I was listening to Sway in the morning coming into work. And this rapper named Papoose was on Sway in the morning. And he was doing a freestyle. And in his freestyle, he mentioned, I'm not gonna rhyme right, but I'll paraphrase what he said. In this freestyle, he basically said that Empire is just ass and Power is the next new show. And I say, you know what? That's it. That's all I need to hear, because he's rapping about what he's hearing on the streets. And the streets are saying that Empire is not it anymore. It's Power. Like, I can't do any research to sort of define it, but I can just tell you now that demographic is leaving the show. They're finding it less interesting. And when that happens, it's going to fall apart.
Well, how do you explain that? It's like, hey man, this is my gut. Or like, how do you explain that to the corporate types? It's like, this show is going to go down very soon.
You know what? That is one of the advantages of having an experienced researcher. I don't always have to rely on the numbers. If I've been doing something for 20 years already, then my intuition kicks in. Like I don't even need to test a pilot or any show. I can just watch it. And in fact, I can pretty much just read the script, because I know what drives people to watch some certain things or consume certain things. So no matter how good you think your idea is, I can tell you whether or not it's going to resonate with people. You can have the best idea. That doesn't mean that it's going to resonate with people, because the idea is just like the thought. There are certain elements that are necessary to make it resonate, to make people want to watch it or consume whatever it is that you're providing. And it's hard as a researcher, because I can't quantify that. It's not enough. I can't say like 80% of, I can't put that in the numbers. But what I can say is that a very popular rapper said that he's not watching Empire anymore.
Like the
That's all.
canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I
Absolutely.
need to know. Yeah, I can't quantify that.
Yeah.
But I can just tell you that the streets are talking, especially when it comes to this particular demographic. This demographic is determining the future of your show. If you do not fix this, this show will be over. I mean, think about it, man. Crocs became those shoes, Crocs, right? They became like a huge, and they're still pretty huge. But it's like, some kids in Harlem decide one day, I think Crocs are cool. All of Harlem starts wearing Crocs. All of New York City starts wearing Crocs. All of the United States starts wearing Crocs. And now Crocs has had a rebirth just because some kids in the hood was like, yo, I think these shoes are pretty dope. And start to wear them. And brands that are aware of that, they try to really, really engage that particular demographic. And that's the not the downfall, but that's one of the things that has hurt network TV, is that, and just entertainment in general sometimes, man, is the people who are making decisions, they're not fully tapped in. We're talking about people who haven't been inside a grocery store in like 10 years, you know? And
Dude.
these are the people that are making decisions. Like they're not fully understanding or aware. When something takes off in their mind, they don't really understand that by the time it takes off to them, it's actually on a decline. It already took off.
Right.
By the time it's hitting their radar,
Right.
it's starting to do, like, they literally have missed the entire upswing. And it's kind of like, guys, you gotta be able to figure this out.
This actually is a good segue, and we'll get into it more, but it's almost like what you're saying about hearing stuff on the streets, you hearing what's going on in the job market. Because Todd and I were discussing this last night, but typically people have tolerated the job market for what it is, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is it must be getting so bad right now
Yeah.
that people are starting to truly speak out about it and, kind of revolt and resist, et cetera, and just be really frustrated by it. But that's also, to what we were just saying, kind of a symptom of it being really bad. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That has to be a signal.
Negativity that's happening surrounding the job market is very, very real. It's extremely real. And like I said, I get that you're like, well, we have this process, but I think people who are looking for jobs are starting to say, well, why do we have that process? It's clearly not working. Like it's clearly not working.
I want to jump into it because you wrote a post recently on LinkedIn that I thought really captured the voices of what Todd and I kind of hear as recruiters, that people are feeling pretty frustrated about the job market. There's been
Yeah.
a lot of people laid off. There aren't as many jobs being created as there are layoffs. So that said, there's this kind of rubber meeting the road in terms of people not being able to get um, the jobs that they want or to find employment, period. So you've been talking to a lot of people. Tell us just the whole process for you and then, what you've heard from other people in this situation.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure you guys saw the jobs report number yesterday. It was like 73,000. And I think May or June, one of those numbers got reduced down from 200,000 jobs created down to 14,000.
Ooh.
So yeah, so I think that in a country of 300 plus million people, the fact that we only created 73,000 jobs last month, which will probably be reduced even more, I think is problematic. And I think the frustration that I hear as I talk to people who are looking for jobs revolves around the fact that they can't find a job. Number one, that's like the ultimate thing. And number two, just the overall process. I'm starting to get feedback. And now, mind you, I'm not really seeking this type of information. I'm not actively looking for a job. But I do know a lot of people who are out of work. So the people who are out of work, they tend to talk about their journey of being out of work. So I have these discussions all the time. And I'm starting to hear things like the job market and these companies are just, they don't respect us at all. Like they toy with us. They treat us poorly when you're looking for a job. They have this attitude of like, you need us, like we don't really need you. They're not upfront with information about the actual process and the candidacy, like how many people are being interviewed, how many people are being talked to, what the next steps are. Things happen like people getting ghosted, recruiters not getting back to people. You talk to someone, you don't get any sort of response for like 15 or 16, maybe even 20 days. Meanwhile, on the other end of that, the people who are at these companies are recruiters. They don't realize that someone's checking their email every 5 minutes, waiting for some sort of response. That sort of stuff is disrespectful and is frustrating. And I feel like it's creating a sense of just actual outrage and anger and people just really wanting to give up. And that's something that really um I just feel like that's something that companies, recruiters, everybody can do better with. Because in this particular process, what's happening is that people are becoming emotionally damaged. They're becoming more negative. They're becoming more sour. Like passing. And they're not checking their email every 10 or 15 minutes for the next 2 weeks.
All right,
I
hold
can't
on.
hear you. There
I'm
you go.
sorry. Let's go back where you were saying people are emotionally damaged
Yeah.
because for whatever reason it froze up on my side.
Okay. All
So
right.
yeah, just to the point where you were talking about people being emotionally damaged.
Yeah. So this process is emotionally and like sort of spiritually damaging the workforce. And it's important because the type of employee that you're going to bring into your company is going to bring along all of that baggage. When you work for a company, the job is just a job, right? But it's actually a relationship between you as a human and the other humans that you work with inside of this company. Any relationship you enter, if you bring along a bunch of baggage, that is coming along with you. And some of this stuff is the product of just simple courtesy and just kindness, sending an email, calling calling the person that you're recruiting a day or two after with some feedback, just anything, so that that person is not hanging on for dear life, waiting on some sort of response. As I said earlier, checking their email every 10 or 15 minutes or 30 minutes to see if they get some sort of response, going through their junk mail. Like, people are actually doing this for days or weeks on end, simply because the process is so broken. The lines of communication are just not where they need to be for job seekers. And it's becoming a real source of frustration. Who knows how that impacts the workforce, but I think that I am very interested in getting some feedback and doing a little bit of research around that.
So I know you're thinking about, based on a lot of the discussions that you had with job seekers, you wanted to do a survey that kind of gives more voice to what people are going through. Can you just give a brief rundown on like what was, the genesis of it? What do you think it would do in terms of results and what it's going to be sharing? And then what do you think the value is going to be?
Yeah. So the survey is basically it's based around just employees' frustration, just everything that we talked about. I want to get a better understanding of what job seekers are going through, how they're feeling about it, and how this is impacting their current world and their future life. So those are the topics that I really want to cover. I think what I want the impact, or at least the effect of it, to be, is to give voice to job seekers, and also let companies and recruiters
Hmm.
have some sort of insight into how people are feeling. I want to do a couple different surveys, or maybe three or four in a series, to kind of, so I can build sort of a tracking to see like how attitudes are changing over time. What I really want people to do is understand that the job seeker and the employer, it's an interconnected process. It works like this. Mostly, from what I can tell without doing my survey, but mostly what I can tell is that job seekers at this point are just asking for more communication, be a little more respectful of their time. Sometimes it's about getting through the process. Sometimes it's about, like you said, Brian, telling them, listen, I know this process is long. I'm gonna call you Tuesday, and make sure you call them Tuesday. Even if it's just, hey, yo, I'm just checking in. I know that you interviewed with such and such. I told you I was gonna call you Tuesday. I don't have any updates, but when I do, I'll let you know. Move on. That sort of stuff and I know it's a pain in the neck. I'm sure there are hundreds of people that you would have to be doing that to every single week. But I think it's going to serve the end person, it's going to serve the end company better. I think, I'm not sure, but I think it will, because the person they're bringing in won't have so much mental and emotional damage that they have suffered through this entire process. So I think that when I talk about my survey, those are the things that I want to talk about: how people are feeling, how that's affecting their personal lives. Because remember, jobs are about how someone's personal life functions. That's just it. I mean, we need to come to a real understanding. It always comes back to that. So making sure that you're getting an employee in who hasn't suffered so much damage in the market, I think, is going to produce a better employee. At least that's my thesis. That's sort of like what I'm theorizing. I think, without biasing my own survey, this is why I'm talking to so many people. I want to make sure that I'm not creating a survey or research that's biased towards how I already think. So it's good to get like your guys' feedback. And that's why on my LinkedIn post is why I asked for feedback. There's been a bunch of people in my DMs, and it's great. I'm hearing from all different types of people. And hopefully, like, you guys will use it as a guy, maybe some companies, some HR people can read through and they say, oh, okay, I understand. I have a better understanding.
Yeah, companies would be interested to hear what their brand equity is with job
Yeah,
seekers, because a
yeah,
lot of times those job seekers are actually consumers. Companies now, you're your own entrepreneur, right?
yeah,
You don't have to rely on corporate.
yeah.
I think 90% of people would jump at the chance to do that. They knew that there was the pot at the end of the rainbow.
They weren't scared, bro. It's mostly fear.
Yeah,
That's what I think.
but that's it, right? How do you overcome that? I started my search firm because I got laid off.
Hmm.
When, did I want to do it before? Yeah, I did. But to put you know, me in motion with that, being laid off in
Yeah.
New York when most of my network was over here in LA.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then I went to the gig economy and then slowly but surely started to build up clients for my business. But yeah, you recognize it all along the way. The one career coach that I had, Adam Ballman, said in that market, it was like during the financial crisis, right? 2006, 2007, 8,
Hmm.
when you're buying your homes. He said it's easier to get acquired versus hired. And I'll never forget what he said.
So, I mean, this has been fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yo, let's do
And
it again.
even like, hey, man, I think people need to hear the real from both sides. So,
Yeah, let's do it again, man. Whenever you want.
Yeah, because we want to make sure we get you in front of the right people with your survey, your other endeavors,
Yeah.
especially the survey. Because I'd be interested to hear what that's
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm still collecting, I'm still kind of building out, what I want to talk about, but this conversation was important, man.
Well,
Like super important.
here's to me why it's important, Benny, because I'm always trying to think of new ways to, uh, from a recruiting perspective, improve it, what have you. But I'm always getting the pushback of like, "Oh, that's going to cost too much," or
Hmm.
"Yeah, we've already invested this much in our applicant tracking system. I don't want to go to a different one." So I'm trying to use AI to be able to automate some of those feedback calls, or hey, no, what you call it, no update this week, but if you want to jump on a call, here's my link to my Calendly. Put 15 minutes on my calendar.
Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
And right now it's just too manual. So
Yeah.
we
And
can
if I could be,
automate stuff like that, but that's going to cost. And I think they would gladly invest in something like that if they say it's hurting their corporate employer brand.
Okay, so you just identified a need. So how can we create something like that?
Exactly. So there are tools out there to just develop it on my own. But thank God we got AI.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's that thinking right there.
but entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In-house, no matter
And
what. But appreciate y'all. The long story I'm trying to share is I agree that the recruiting process is broken. Todd and I talk about it a lot. But the candidate mindset and candidate preparation, it also is somewhat broken. I think entitlement expectations are there that don't help find a solution.
Yeah.
That's just a general thought I have. Ty, what do you think? Because you're in-house and you've dealt with this in many different functions.
yeah, I completely understand the frustration on the candidate side. Um, we've all been candidates ourselves at one point, and it's a lot. Uh, or companies are asking us to do a lot with less and less every year. And it's just interesting, just with regards to return to office after the pandemic. A lot of companies were laying off, and then we had to scramble when we started to rehire again, and that meant hiring recruiters. And now we're to a point where we're starting to see the job market stabilize in a sense, in that the positions that were vacated during the pandemic have all been filled and maybe backfilled one or two times after that. So it's starting to settle down a little bit. So I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. But now with more and more layoffs and inflation, there's less job creation. I'm starting to see that frustration build back up again.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with everything you guys said. I think the layoffs are for, sort of the way the economy is going, and all this sort of stuff is really leading to a lot of frustration. And this is, a little. This is a component of this particular job market. What I'm about to say, but I think from the standpoint of someone who is looking for a job, um, and Brian, we had talked about this the other day. Like people who are looking for a job, they do have to take some responsibility and do things better on their end, I would say. But I also think that the companies have such an upper hand at this moment that they really do abuse their positions and they really do treat people poorly and they just don't seem to care about it. I'm sure. How many times have you heard of people just getting ghosted, not hearing any kind of response? I mean, it happens all the time. Almost everyone who I talk to who has had interviews, they've had more instances of not getting a response than actually getting the typical email of like, hey, we decided to go with someone else. I mean, it's more, it's actually more of that. And that is something that someone who's a job seeker doesn't have any control over, and it's hard for someone who is a middle-aged person who got laid off and they've been working in one position forever to sort of navigate this new job market. Not even navigate the new job market, but sort of navigate how you function, how you apply for jobs. They don't understand brand building and that sort of thing, like where they're building their own personal brand, because you never used to have to do that. You would just submit resumes. I mean, all of that sort of stuff is something that's out of their wheelhouse. And I think recruiters and companies don't really have any sort of like consideration for anything like that.
I'm saying as a recruiter that is serving a client, as far as a hiring manager goes or hiring executive, that's really it's like the decathlon in a way where you have different points that they're all going to have to do. Now, I'm not defending the fact that there are gaps in the process to keep communication or other things that could be shored up. How do you all feel about that new trend of this mass amount of interviewing, these 2 month processes? Are we getting to the best candidate at that stage, or to Benny's point, is it just a waste of time?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so to follow up on that, Brian, I think, so Benny, sometimes when you have a recruiting process and there's, let's say, an assessment, you have to issue the assessment process to every candidate, no matter the qualifications, just from a fairness perspective. So for instance, if you're, let's say, the top candidate, I'm not sure about Benny's fit or skill level, let's give him a one-off assessment. That's actually illegal, actually.
Mhm.
So you really can't do that. So it has to be, the interview process has to be basically the same. And I think maybe that's kind of was their process from before, and they just got used to a business case. I remember a lot of those Silicon Valley companies, they'll go through a long, arduous interview process. They'll meet 8 or 9 people. I had the same experience with one of the streaming services. And then, there was a business case afterward, or I'd
Yeah,
have to submit a writing sample, whatever.
yeah.
But it's got to be similar for everybody across that same particular role.
I guess my point is, I think from a candidate's perspective, there are a ton of things going on that impact all the different touch points and processes that we're discussing. And again, companies should be thinking more clearly about how to mitigate all of the negatives in the process to make sure the candidate experience and the hiring process is the most successful. They're
Yeah,
not doing that right now. Surveying people from their experience is going to clarify the areas in the recruitment process where negative impacts can be mitigated from a candidate experience standpoint. If we need to get back to somebody quicker and let them know they're not qualified or they didn't get selected, that is definitely on the company standpoint.
yeah.
But I'm saying the assessment process and what people go through, volume, the length of time, all of that. I mean, look, Todd, you tell me if we could get candidate process done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, which is unheard of. It happens, but it's unheard of. We be millionaires.
I know, but
But
why is
usually,
it
but
why is it
usually the
unheard
recruiting
of?
pro, but usually because the job opens.
Yeah.
The requisition process happens. The interview scheduling. The candidates aren't available. Hiring managers aren't available. You got to get 5 people in. But I do empathize with the challenge of people not feeling like they're being engaged enough,
Hmm.
informed enough throughout the process.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. And always remember to stay sharp.